Today we're talking about something super important, the powerful connection between what you eat and managing atrial fibrillation, or, AFib. We're going to dive into what foods can help your heart stay in rhythm and, well, which ones you might want to think twice about.
So let's just get right to it. Is your diet actually affecting your AFib? The answer from all the science is a huge yes. And honestly, just understanding that link, that's your first big step in taking back some control.
Okay, so let's do a quick refresher, just so we're all on the same page. What is AFib? Basically, it's when the top parts of your heart, the atria, start beating all chaotically, kind of out of sync with the bottom parts. So instead of that nice, steady pump, you get a fast, irregular pulse.
And look, this isn't something to just brush off. That irregular beat can seriously up your risk for things like stroke and heart failure. But, and this is the most important part, you are not powerless here. Not at all. Things like changing your lifestyle, especially your diet, are some of the best tools you've got in your toolbox.
All right, let's get practical. Let's start with the stuff you might want to cut back on. We're going to look at a few key categories that the research really points to as potential triggers or big risk factors.
First on the list, alcohol. And yeah, this is a big one. The evidence here is pretty darn strong.
So why is alcohol such a big deal for AFib? Well, it kind of hits you from a few different angles. For some people, it can be a direct trigger for an AFib episode. Plus, drinking a lot over time increases your risk of getting AFib in the first place. Not to mention, it can lead to other problems like high blood pressure and obesity. But here's the good news. A big study showed that when regular drinkers with AFib quit, it made a huge difference in how often their arrhythmias came back.
Okay, next up, salt. And this stuff is in pretty much everything.
So, the official recommendation is to stay under 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. What does that even mean? It's about 1 single teaspoon of salt for the entire day. And believe me, that adds up way faster than you think, especially when you start looking at processed foods.
The connection is like a domino effect, right? Too much salt leads to higher blood pressure. And high blood pressure, that's a major risk factor for AFib. This is why you gotta become a detective and read those labels. Things like canned soups, frozen meals, deli meats, they can be absolute salt bombs. Just switching to fresh or low sodium options can be a total game changer.
All right, number 3 on our list to limit, sugar. And we're really talking about those added sugars here. Now, check out this number, because it's a big one. Research shows that if you have diabetes, you are 40% more likely to develop AFib. 40%. That's huge. And the key connection here is all about blood sugar. Think about it. Diets with a lot of added sugar, from sodas, baked goods, candy, they make your blood sugar spike. Do that over and over, and it can lead to insulin resistance, which is a major step toward diabetes. And like we just saw, that puts your AFib risk way up. So the takeaway, try to stick with whole foods and really cut back on those sugary processed items.
Last up on our limit list is fats. And this one's a little tricky because it's not as simple as all fats are bad. They're definitely not all created equal.
So the name of the game here is making smart swaps. You want to limit the saturated fats, think red meat, cheese, butter, and especially the trans fats you find in fried foods and lots of packaged baked goods. And what do you swap them with? The healthier guys, like the monounsaturated fats in olive oil and avocados, or the awesome omega-3s you get from fish like salmon.
Okay, before we get to all the good stuff you can eat, we need to tackle a couple of common myths. There's so much confusing information out there, so let's just clear the air.
I bet this is the question on a lot of your minds. For years, the advice was simple. If you have AFib, you have to quit coffee. Period.
But guess what? The thinking on that has totally changed. Newer studies are showing that for most people, a moderate amount of coffee, we're talking up to maybe 4 cups a day, is generally fine and isn't linked to more AFib. Now, energy drinks? That is a whole different story. They're loaded with sugar and all sorts of other stimulants, and they have been connected to some really serious heart problems. So, bottom line, that morning cup of joe is probably okay. That energy drink, not so much.
And here's the other huge point of confusion. You're on blood thinners, so you're told you have to avoid healthy green vegetables like spinach or kale because they have vitamin K, right?
While the truth is, it completely depends on which blood thinner you're taking. If you're on an older one like Warfarin, then yes, you have to be mindful, because that drug works by blocking vitamin K. But the newer ones, you might hear them called NOACs, like Eliquis or Xarelto, they work in a totally different way and don't really care about vitamin K. The absolute most important thing here? Talk to your doctor. They'll tell you exactly what you need to know for your specific prescription.
Okay, we've talked enough about what to avoid. Let's get to the fun part. Let's talk about all the amazing, delicious foods you should be piling on your plate. Instead of getting obsessed with one superfood, it's often way more helpful to think about your overall eating pattern. And two of the absolute best for heart health are the Mediterranean diet and plant-based diets. Both are packed with fiber, vitamins, and those good fats we talked about. And both have been shown to help lower the very risk factors that can contribute to AFib.
And within those healthy diets, there are two minerals that are like superstars for your heart rhythm: magnesium and potassium. They help keep the electrical signals in your heart firing correctly. If you're low on them, your risk of arrhythmia can go up. And where do you find them? In all sorts of great foods like nuts, leafy greens, avocados, and sweet potatoes.
Phew, okay, we've covered a ton of ground, right? What to limit, what myths are busted, what foods to load up on. So let's wrap this up and put it all together into a really simple plan.
Look, this is not about changing everything about your life tomorrow. That never works. It's about making small changes you can actually stick with. Maybe for you today, that's just swapping one soda for a glass of water. Or maybe it's adding some spinach to dinner. So I'll leave you with this question. What's the one healthy choice you're going to make today to support your heart? Thanks for joining us.